And we are live. And I say welcome to all the listeners and all the viewers to this fourth day of the 9-day solstice celebration for Margot. Helen, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity that we have to speak about seeking our inner voice. My name is Marie de Kock, and I have pretty much been on that search my whole life. And first, I searched everywhere outside of myself and found many techniques and ways to bring myself to inner stillness, to start listening. And then finally, around about 2012, I went through my menopause and at the same time my Kundalini awakening. And I was working at a hot spring resort as a Reiki master near an active volcano. And so it was a hot time in my life. And what happened was I experienced the awakening of my inner voice from within, from my womb. And it was an experience of realizing that there is a womb wisdom inside of us, a voice that's been neglected for thousands of years, that's been silenced for thousands of years. And today we're going to talk about it. We're going to do a meditation. There are some exercises available. And I'm going to be reading a contribution from another artist. And with me, I'm delighted to say I have the honor of the presence of Lucy Pierce, an artist, mother, and she's going to be introducing herself in a moment. If I introduce myself, I would like to say I'm a nomad, a solitary practitioner of earth spirituality, a Reiki master, healer, and a daughter of Mother Earth. And so now I would like to welcome Lucy Pierce. I have to push a little button here to put her on the screen. Thank you for your lovely presence, Lucy. And would you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Certainly, Marie. It's lovely to be here talking to you. I'm Lucy Pierce, and I'm an artist and a poet and a mother. And yeah, I feel like all my life I've been fumbling to find my inner voice and to unearth it from beneath all the other voices that spoke in me. And my art and my poetry has been an articulation of just that, I guess. It's been trying to give form and shape to the inner terrain of my being, and to express the connection that I feel as a woman to this beautiful body of Mother Earth that we live upon. Yeah, that's me. It's lovely to be here.
Wonderful. Yes, and what I would like to say just for a moment before you start telling us very specifically or more specifically about your finding and the way you practice and keep maintaining that, what I realize how worthwhile that search is that when I finally realized that I could come into alignment with something like a spiritual placenta, an umbilical cord that connects me, first of all, to the center of Mother Earth, to her womb, and then the center of the sun and a fixed star beyond that, and the center of the Milky Way and the center of the universe. It carries on and on. But to understand that I'm kind of inside Margot, that I'm inside God, that I'm like a fetus, and all that I need to do is to float and relax and feel that inner connection and the tremendous security that comes with it, to understand that my spirit is part of something utterly eternal, and that I'm constantly connected as long as I come into alignment with it. It's not a path that I needed to seek outside. It's not some certain tradition or form. It was just coming into alignment, remaining in contact, uh, and understanding it's there for me all the time. And the greatest joy was for me to understand that it's a line that actually, on another dimension, a deeper inner dimension, runs inside my physical body, that I could have sensations and experiences of it inside my heart, inside my head, the center of my head, and more importantly, finally, actually inside my womb, that there's a whole column of light, that this umbilical strain runs through me, um, giving me a constant feeling of I'm just the one that need to relax and keep the faith up and keep connecting in whatever way. It's always there for me. It's eternally there for me. And Lucy, if you can continue about your experience of your inner voice, please.
Sure. Your words fill my heart. Totally resonate with what you've just said. So I feel that my connection to the voice of that sacred interface within is something that has evolved over time through my deep listening to the mysterious, elusive and sometimes nonsensical promptings of the mythopoetic realms of life. And this relationship's slowly grown as I have honoured and wooed my own unique language of dreams, deeply listening to the shapes that my body wants to make as I dance, or the pictures or visions that bloom in my mind as I meditate or muse on themes or stories, in ritual and through the deep creative unconscious, and in the threshold spaces that my bleeding time offer to me as a woman, and also for me in carrying child and breastfeeding my babies, that this portal of my body as a real vessel for connecting me into that mystery. Untethering myself from the inner critic and the hyper-rational mindset of our culturally indoctrinated mind. And I feel that to begin with, my relationship to the words and images that arose within me was tenuous, and in contrast, the voices within me that would belittle and diminish my attempts at articulating these offerings were strong. But over time, in the saying yes again and again to the half-formed and strange seeming offspring of my relationship to my deep inner muse, I feel I've made a more robust connection to that inner voice. And there's been a need for me to find an inner tenderness towards the particular way that I receive information, and a need to quieten the ideas of how I'm supposed to vision or what it's supposed to look like to receive from spirit, almost as though I've had to learn to accept the way in which I see or feel or hear, however humble it may seem, it's the perfect way for me to receive. It's taken me a while to accept that often for me, knowing is born of my kinesthetic sensing of the sensations in my body as a visceral experience. And the imagery is often a delayed translation born of my coming to surrender to embodied experience and receiving sensation in the body. And a question that I see I've been seeking to understand all my life really is, how can I receive myself as a sacred conduit that I am, and that each of us, I believe each of us are, in our unique ways. And over time I've seen the gifts that this conversation with the realms of mystery and creation have offered me in my life. Gifts of meaning making and insight, and not always in the moment of receiving. It's like more in the timeless realm of intuitive becoming, imagery speaking to imagery, the body opening more deeply to receive the reciprocal tapestry of cohesion, of psychic symmetry, receiving the self as co-creator of the universe. It's also been my experience of suffering, of not belonging, of somehow feeling fundamentally unmet by what my culture was offering me, that's helped to forge a deeper connection to my inner voice. A sometimes desperate cleaving to what authentic embodied meaning I could find and make of my life in my small and fumbling ways, as a means of staving off the threat of meaninglessness or desperation or helplessness. And often the one who knows how to listen within me is found on the other side of my own messy surrendering to vulnerability in myself. And sometimes my resistance to that surrendering hurts and is far from graceful. And often there's sweat and tears and mucus and blood. Feels very feminine to me. Yeah, and the tools with which I've courted the mystery are many in my life, that have included dreaming, attending to the blood mysteries, ritual, dance, birth, eroticism, craft, art making, women's circles, sweat lodge, story, drumming, meditation, prayer, song, chant, the labyrinth, poetry. It's felt important to me at times to really fully immerse myself in the soulful, to saturate my life with the life-giving fruits of my fellow travellers, this beauty way, their words and pictures and songs, in order to recalibrate my inner culture to a more deeply attuned reality. Most of all, it's the returning again and again to drink at that well, because of my deep love for that place where I'm in direct contact with the source within me, deeply receptive and diffuse and attuned, and then calling in my will to action to direct the energy of what's been received into an offering back to life of my love. And this is something to live for, I feel. Sense of belonging that's embodied in this process of listening to the unique language of life that's speaking through me. I feel like it requires a deep unity between the masculine and the feminine, the formlessness to receive the seed, the spark, and then the will and the direction to bring it into form. And both aspects of forging and tending. It's such a dance, and one that I'm still learning to trust and to read, and to be mindful of feeding the voices that connect me to life and to the sacred weave, and not to indulge those voices that would have me believe I'm unworthy of belonging to the great cosmic dance of creation. And the last thing I just wanted to say was that it's similar to what you were speaking to earlier, that I have just such a strong sense that this our connection to this source is indestructible and timeless and so strong and fearless. And it's our own relationship to this place and our capacity to be the listening one that can be jeopardized or brutally buried or neglected in ourselves. But I feel like we are all innately connected, and I think really key to learning to tune in and receive the deep wisdom of our own inner voices is our capacity for self-love. I feel like so much of my life has been dominated by very degrading and self-deprecating voices, and as though that were this voice of the outer culture expressed within me, that was invested in me remaining small and separated and ashamed and disconnected. And my whole life so far and ongoingly has been about learning to disobey that voice, that brutal voice, and to find the courage to believe in my own connection to magnificence, and to foster and nurture and patiently tend and grow the voice within me that connects me to the eternal sacred mystery of creation in a messy, real, raw, fierce, tender, instinctual, intuitive, vulnerable and magnificent way.
That's very beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, the self-love is such an important ingredient, and being gentle with ourselves and remembering that that inner being is highly refined and sensitive and almost like, especially when the relationship starts, it's like an inner child. And during the meditation, I address the inner child in the heart. And then when I think about what's inside the womb, it's more a little bit like a fairy, uh, more ephemeral kind of being, a little wilder, a little stronger and independent, but nevertheless, that little spark needs to be fed, needs to be cared for. And at this point in time, I would just like to read a contribution from another artist, um, Arna Bartz. And she says, I see the inner voice as a broad seeing aspect of myself. I imagine her to be in the know, aware of my best interest, focused on my most fulfilling path. I trust her implicitly. If I feel a note of discord in my body, I know I'm not connecting with my inner being. I take the time to settle myself, relax my body, and soothe myself back into connection. When I do this, I am back in perfect trust and can then take the next step or not take the next step in my life. I am in love with my inner self. I listen, I respect, and I do the gentle work to keep the relationship fresh and sweet. Thank you for those beautiful words, Arna. And when we look at her art, just like when I look at your art, Lucy, it's so clear that when you're doing that work, you are expressing that inner voice and finding the source directly and giving us the joy of experiencing it with you as we do so with all art. Um, that for me is something that uh, I see so amazingly as a healer, that each and every woman has this unique way of expressing the inner voice, and uh, such a beautiful way of connecting. We don't have to do a specific technique. It can be through gardening, it can be through cooking, it can be through jogging. However, we find that still place inside. And something that might surprise women, what I would like to say next is the deepest form of alignment for women is actually through orgasm. That's when we energetically connect and in that relaxed way open up the deepest for the energy to flow through. Because one aspect of it, as you said, Lucy, is to relax, to listen, to be totally receptive. And
Mm.
on the fifth dimension of our miraculous being, the channel opens up from the womb, well, through the root chakra to open up for the energy of Mother Earth, and then into the womb. And then with an open, loving heart, we allow that energy to flow through to the center of our brain, to the pituitary and the pineal. And then we open up our crown. And when we are that open, we can, through either sex with a partner or with pleasuring ourselves, pull the pleasure up into that still point in the womb. And that causes an alchemy inside of us and brings us into complete alignment with the spiritual placenta. And so the ancient arts of sacred sex, whether it's Tantra or the Kundalini rising, they are all connecting us very directly. For a woman, her sexuality and spirituality is one and the same thing. And at that moment, something so astonishing happens. We send out a magnificent, blissful frequency to the universe, and the universe responds. Our womb and that still point inside our toroidal field, inside the middle of a vortex spinning down into Mother Earth and another vortex spinning up to the sun. There is a still point, and our womb is placed right inside that for the perfect nurture and protection of the fetus. But on a deeper dimension, it is also our connection to our inner child or our liquid light body or our dreaming body, our core, or in female spirituality we call it the core. And she wakes up when we consciously go through this process and understand how exquisitely sacred it is. And the development, that the apprenticeship that the ancient priestesses or witches went through was the awakening, development, and training of that dreaming body. And just for a moment before we say goodbye, I want women to just visualize inside of themselves, inside the womb there, on a deeper dimension, if we want to be very exact, the fifth dimension, that there's something like an egg, and there's a spiritual placenta connecting us all the way to Margot. But if we consciously start working with that process, the implosive orgasms can be like a spark, and a little chicken, a little chick, a little spirit, bird spirit can wake up inside of us. And I want you to think about the visual art that you've seen of the Kundalini process. And this little bird spirit, winged one inside of us, can start developing. And with an open heart, there is a field of energy that opens up that's huge. And I want you to see it like wings, because so it is. And these winged archetypes, these winged goddesses, are showing us something. And once those wings have spread, because our hearts are so wide open with love, yes, it's love making that opens up the heart the widest. That little bird lifts up its beak and starts pecking at that egg, wanting to hatch. And then finally that bird can fly. We are the bird women. And we are the goddesses.
Mm.
Sorry, it's such an awesome, powerful thing that's been latent inside of us, been silent inside of us for so long, but it's real. And every woman has the capacity to open up to that experience. The magical being inside of us is trying to wake up, just like the magical being inside of Mother Earth. It's overwhelmingly powerful and beautiful. And I encourage every woman to make herself available to the spirit inside of her to wake up. Because once we do that, just so incredibly naturally, just like a mother who wants a peaceful environment for her children to thrive in, this bird, this spirit inside of us, will want a magical environment and create, attract from the universe an absolute magical, exquisite environment for us to be in. It's such a small step away from us, this golden age, this reality that we are able to create, and so utterly worthwhile to seek that place where we connect with that umbilical cord. Uh, we need to close. I encourage everybody to please go and listen to the meditation where I try to facilitate that process, and to look at the little video of the exercises, and to also listen to the marvelous poem that we included in this program of women with a great sense of humor, where they read about their amazing connection. Lucy, I'm going to ask you to just say goodbye to our wonderful viewers, and I'm saying goodbye to all the magical women, the bird women, the spirits who are listening. Lucy, last word from you.
Oh, fills me with so much joy to hear you speak. I feel it tickles the feathers on my wings. um, and yes, goodbye to everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, Marie. It's been a deep pleasure. And go well. Blessings to all.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful presence. And thank you for everybody listening. And I honor the feminine essence and the inner voice in everybody. Happy solstice.